because this is part 3, so we should somehow have settled into this thought. Will I point? Where did we pick this statement from in the Bible? Ramide? Where did we pick removing the veil over all nations from? Oh, you'll be absent for the 2 previous sessions. I didn't know. Isaiah chapter 25, verse 6 and 7. Let's go there. Isaiah 25, 6 and 7. And in this mountain, the Lord of hosts will make for all people a feast of choice pieces, a feast of wines on the lees, of fat things full of marrow, of well-refined wines on the lees. He will destroy on this mountain the surface of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. It will destroy on this mountain the surface of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. Amen. Acts of the Apostles chapter 1 verse 8. Acts of the Apostles chapter 1 verse 8. For you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you. You shall be witnesses to me in Jerusalem. If there was any place that didn't need God to raise a witness, their entire history was filled with God's witness. It's people of God, the Jews, isn't it? But Jesus said, when you receive the power of the Holy Spirit, you'll be witnesses to me in Jerusalem and in Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. In part 1 of this series, we dealt with what? Removing the veil over the nations, part 1. And we called it what? Huh? Who will remind? The knowledge that became ignorance, the light that became blindness. Okay, speaking of the Jews. So, they truly have the knowledge of God, but it became a knowledge that became another hindrance. It was summarized in John chapter 9 this way. Jesus said to the Jews, if you say you are blind, then you will see. But now that you see, you remain blind. I mean, there's a whole lot that we have dealt with there. Because the Jews were the ones who received the law. Are we together? Which was a sign of light. But they became so self-righteous in it that it became their blindness. And one of the things we are emphasizing with this teaching is for you to know the intensity of the devil in blinding you. He will use anything, which calls for a lot of vigilance in the life of any individual. To the Jews, he used even the light that God gave to them, he turned it to become what? Their blindness. And we spoke last week about the second place where Jesus said they would give witness in Samaria. What did we call Samaria? Incomplete knowledge. Incomplete knowledge. That's Samaria. And we showed you how they actually knew so much because they stayed, most of them were actually children of mixture between Jews and the nations that were settled in Israel at the captivity. Are you following me? And they were well acquainted with Jewish ancestry and culture and practices. Even at a point, they perceived they were more zealous for it. So they felt, that's why one of them looked at Jesus in John chapter 4 and said, "We worship in this mountain, but you say we should worship in Jerusalem." So the third part we are going to today is, you'll be witnesses to me in Jerusalem, in Judea, in Samaria, and what? The ends of the world. The ends of the world is where we are today, which is the Gentiles. Whether they are German, hallelujah. Whether they were Germans or Americans or Indians, all that is called the ends of the earth, which is the Gentile nation. Praise the Lord. I said, praise the Lord. Okay. Ephesians chapter 4 from verse 17. This I say, therefore, and testify in the Lord, that you should no longer walk as the rest of the Gentiles walk. This is the Ephesian church. They were actually Gentiles. But here, Paul is saying there is something that has happened to you that should not make you walk like the rest of the Gentiles walk. So one of the things we're going to define this evening is, how do the Gentiles walk? The Bible says they walk in the futility of their mind. This is God's perspective of the walk of a Gentile. The futility of his mind. Continue. Having their understanding darkened. Being alienated from the life of God. An alien is a stranger. So when you are alienated, that means you are not included in that fellowship. Are you following me? Because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness. Gentile. And the influences who, being past feeling, have given themselves to lewdness, to walk all uncleanness with greediness. Verse 20. But you have not so learned Christ. These Gentile people, church, said, don't walk like the rest of the Gentiles. Number one, he identified them by telling them in Ephesians 2 verse 11, Ephesians 2 verse 11, that there was a time in their life that they were called Gentiles by those who are of the circumcision, which is the Jews, which is the circumcision made with what? With end. So when he said, don't walk like the rest of the Gentiles, it means there was a point in your journey where you were like them. Are you following me? It means God must have called you out of what you used to be. That's why you cannot walk like the rest of the Gentiles. Are you following me, church? So they were once Gentiles. Then in Ephesians 2 verse 19, he now told them that because of the blood, they are no longer strangers and foreigners, but they are fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God. Praise the Lord. How did they come into that position? Ephesians chapter 3 verse 8 told us how they came into that position. To me, who am less than the least of the saints, this grace was given that I should preach among the Gentiles. So how did God get Gentiles who will not walk like the rest of the Gentiles? It was by the instrument of preaching. Are you following me? When God began to proclaim his word among Gentiles, that entire set that was called Gentiles before, God started pulling some people out of them. that they were no longer strangers to the commonwealth of God. And it happened by what? By the preaching of God's word. Say amen. So by the time he was able to achieve that, that's how he got to Ephesians 4:17, when I said that they should not walk like the rest of the Gentiles. I've just shown you how we got to that word. Okay. In Amos chapter 3, verse 2, God identified his covenant work on earth when he spoke to Israel. He said, you only I have known of all the families of the earth. God looked at the entire tribes on the earth and pointed to Israel and said, you only. So that's why in broad sense, you can divide the world into two. Jews and Gentiles. Are you following me? Jews had a covenant with God that was symbolized by circumcision of their male children, and the rest of the world did not have that covenant. That's why they were called the uncircumcised. So God looked at them and said, you alone I have known of all the families of the earth. But when God said that, we automatically think it means nothing was happening with Gentile nations. That's wrong. Are you following me? Are you following me? Are you here? I want you to know that some of those nations became even bigger and mightier than Israel. For example, in Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 1 to 3. Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 1 to 3. God said to Israel, hear, O Israel, you are to cross over the Jordan today to go in to dispossess nations greater and what? Mightier than yourself. Is that not amazing? That a nation that had covenant, that does not have covenant with God, were greater and mightier. Are you following me? See, this is one of the lessons you need to learn. If you are trying to understand your position in God by trying to compete with the world on certain elements, you will miss it. That people are not with God does not mean they can't build great systems. That's why you have gone into countries of the world today that does not even practice Christianity, and they are called advanced countries. You go to Japan, and Christianity in Japan in ratio, I don't think can be up to 5% of their population. They are Shintoists and Buddhists and this, but they have brought great advancement to life, which means God does not wait for us to turn to God before God even blesses humanity. God had been involved in the life of Gentiles before they came into consciousness with God. Are you following me? God told Israel, you are going to nations great and mightier than yourself, cities great and fortified up to heaven. One of the things people tell you is that Africa is so churchy, but we are not developed. It is not new. Have you heard it before? That go to some of those places that people are not even going to church. They've discovered this solution. They've discovered that solution. And that we are only exporting religion. In fact, somewhere in their subconscious, they think, like Pharaoh said to Moses. He said, when Moses went to Pharaoh and said, let these people go that they might serve me. Pharaoh told Moses, these people are idle. That's why they are thinking about worship. So what was Pharaoh's solution? Increase their task. Go abroad. You will make money, but you will work for it. You get what I'm saying? What did I say? You will do 3 jobs. When you give 1 hour devotion, you will know truly that you love God. But here, 12 midday on Monday morning, you can have people pray. Lord, change our nation. Lord, vote for us a new president. How does he do it? How does God? God does not thumbprint on election day. I hope you have your PVC. But I won't say anything. But that does not mean God does not influence the activities of men. Yeah, that's another extreme. So these people are people great and tall, descendants of Anakim, whom you know, of whom you have heard it said, who can stand before the descendants of Anak? They had reputation. And verse 3 says, therefore understand today that the Lord your God is he who goes over you as a consuming fire. He will destroy them and bring them down before you, so you will drive them out and destroy them quickly as the Lord has said to you. So Gentile nations were not necessarily undeveloped nations. In fact, in some things, they were more sophisticated than Israel. Glory to God. Are you still following that thought? If you go to, is it Genesis? Genesis chapter 36, verse 31. When the Bible was comparing Esau and Jacob, Genesis 36 and 31, said there were kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the children of Israel. Edom developed a sense of nationhood identity long before Israel discovered it. When Israel was still moving in Egypt and they didn't know whether they were, the word Hebrew is a wanderer. Somebody that wandered. It was a leading, but it was not understood by the world. It was like a wandering nation. Are you following me? At that time, Edom was Edom. Esau, the man that did not receive the blessing, but they had systems developed, that they had kings. Long before Israel even developed clear guidelines of leadership. Are you still following me? If you go to Numbers 13, 27 to 29, I'm just trying to show you Gentile nation. Numbers 13, 27 to 29. The people will return from the spying of the land. What did they say? They told him, we went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is fruit. Verse 28. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. Are they covenant people? Nevertheless, are they strong? They are strong. The cities are fortified and what? Very large. That's why you can still go into archaeology and discover their ruins. Are you following me? The wonders of the ancient world, you won't see anything of Israel there. Pyramids were not built by Jews. These are the reasons why the Gentiles feel superior. It's a deception that worked with that generation that is working now. That's why anytime you are trying to talk to the world, first thing they are looking for is what you have produced. Are you following? They built cities that were fortified very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the south. The Hittites and the Jebusites, the Amorites dwell in the mountain. The Canaanites dwell by the sea. They've conquered all manner of terrains. When they say somebody dwell by the sea, means that they have mastered. It's like some of them are Elijah, and some of them are what are those people that dwell in those places in Adamawa that people discovered? Coma Hills. That dwell in very, very remote places, but they found a way to survive there. Are you following me? They have systems that they've developed to just be able to live in that place. Gentile nations were not necessarily backward nations. Are you hearing that? In fact, in Genesis 4, 16 to 24, one of their fathers is called Cain. Genesis 4, from verse 16. Cain went from the presence of the Lord. He dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. Who is Cain? The son of Adam who killed his brother, who received a mark of God's condemnation on him. And he went from the presence of the Lord. And he knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. Not the Enoch that walked with God. And he built a city. The first man who built a city in the Bible is a cursed man. Amen. May your faith and my faith be bigger than block and cement. As I said, don't you know what I have shown? If you see the city we built, as important as those things are, Cain built city. Called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. Continue. To Enoch was born Irad. Irad begot Mehujael. Mehujael begot Methusael, not Methuselah. It's not the same. Methusael begot Lamech. Lamech took for himself 2 wives in a coastline. The name of one was Adare. The name of the second was Zillah. Adare bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tent and have livestock. He's the first chairman of Magban. You know what they call Magban? That's the Association of Cattle Rearers in Nigeria. What's that? Mieti Allah was the first chairman. And they don't make you chairman when you don't have a big heart. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who played the harp and the flute outside of God's presence. Are you seeing that in that darkness, they were still advancing? Because what we ate was the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. It really opened our eyes. It just didn't open it to what we should see. But to think that when man fell, man's eyes was not open. That's why you can see nations that are not Christians still having some advance. You don't need to pray in the spirit to go to the moon. Are you following me? As for Zia, the second one, she bore Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every craftsman in bronze and iron. This one is the one that is still allowing war to happen in Ukraine and Russia. It was the father. We just look at iron. This is a more tank. The sister of Tubal-Cain was Naaman. Lamech said to his wife, Adare and Zillah, hear my voice, wives of Lamech. Listen to my speech. I have killed a man for wounding me. Even a young man for hurting me. And what did he say? If Cain shall be avenged 7-fold, then Lamech 77-fold. There's a point that one will bring us to, if we can get there tonight. Praise God. So, time will fail me to talk to you about Genesis 11. When man said, let's build a tower that reached heaven, they were not under a covenant of God. Do you know the statement God said in Genesis 11? God said, there is nothing these men have set their minds to do that will not be done. So men can achieve things and build a presidential ambition for 25 years. They are planning it. And it is so, it's not this, the depth of man, capacities in man. You can even build a big church. It's not every big church that is Holy Spirit. If your goal and your obsession is that you want your church to be big, it can be big. The only thing is that when they were trying to build that tower, they said, let's make for stone mortar. The materials will change. It will not reflect the actual things God created. That's the difference. But you will find what to use. Are you following me? You might not build on the word and spirit, but you build on something. If that is your obsession, you will do it. That's why you read books like, you see that people have explored the mind of man. It's a man thinketh in his heart. So easy. In actual sense, if you read that place in context, Was not just talking about have a thought in your heart. You know what he said in that place? Read in Proverbs. He said, if you are eating with a miser, then put a knife on your neck. Because he will tell you, eat, eat. But his mind is not there. He said, for what a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That's what the Bible is saying. It's not, as I think it, if the thought can enter my mind. Are you getting? Means that when you see human beings, they are more than appearance. That's what he say. Develop a thought. You know, we have built a whole system of theology on it. Like we built on money answered all things when we didn't read it in context. That he was talking about a feast. That if you want to drink wine, you want NSC in your wedding, is that's what he said. Money answers. That's what Ecclesiastes was saying. But you know, even the Bible says money. Money. Have you seen people quote things out of place? So we say they are quoting Bible. Amen. Tell your neighbor, when you are reading the Bible, don't read your greed into his creed. Glory to God. Gentile. Romans chapter 1. Let's talk about that from verse 18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Continue. Because what may be known of God is manifesting them, for God has shown it to them. Who was he talking about? He was not talking about Jews. He was talking about mankind. Say mankind. So even the Gentile nations, though not in covenant, were never without God's witness. Are you following me? For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things which are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were they thankful. They became futile in their thought, in the futility of their mind. They became blank. They became unproductive in their thought. And their foolish hearts were darkened. Are you seeing the reference of Ephesians chapter 4 in Romans chapter 1 again? Professing to be wise, they became fools. Continue. They changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image like corruptible man, and birds and four-footed animals and creeping things. Therefore, God gave them up to uncleanness in the lust of their heart, to dishonor their bodies among themselves. Don't forget that they were wise. See, I will show you something about the Gentile. That they advanced. Now, let me quickly give you a snippet into what I'm saying. There was a time in human civilization that sexual purity, one of the greatest evils you could do, even when people did not know God, was to be a promiscuous person. In any civilization. In my part of the world, they believe if a man dies early, go and check his wife. They are not Christian. They believe that it is the way the woman is, that if a woman is, people too believe it, that if a woman is promiscuous, the husband will die very fast. And it's just simple logic, because the man will not have rest. That's what they're trying to say. But there's something about Africa. They cannot say things psychologically. They have to use spiritual language. If Africa wants to tell you it's not good to sit on something they used to cook in the kitchen, they call it taboo. Because they are a spiritual clan. So if they don't use spiritual language, you don't understand. That's why Africa is full of taboos. It's a reflection of Gentile mind. Because I will show you that some of the things that reflect Gentile mind is superstition. Because there is no clear knowledge of God, but they are still advancing in the level of light they have. That level of light is called the blindness of their heart. But they built cities with it. So what they now try to develop, craft God. That's why there are 4 or 5 things that describe the Gentile world. Superstition. Another one is idolatry. Another one is lewdness, lasciviousness. I've jumped my note. Demonism and philosophies. 5. That's the description of Gentile world. Anywhere in the world, one of those things finds the culture of a people without God. Philosophies, demonism, superstitions, lasciviousness and lewdness, and idolatry. Praise the Lord. So therefore God gave them up to uncleanness in the lust of their body, to dishonor their bodies among themselves. Look at this. Who exchanged the truth of God for a lie, worship and serve creature rather than the creator. Somebody say idolatry. Who is blessed forever. Yes? Continue. For this reason, God gave them over to vile passion, lasciviousness. For even their women exchange the natural use for what is against nature. I wanted to say something. When the earth was dark, before the season of enlightenment, sex was something guarded. Even in civilizations that did not know God. We began to understand it. When we understood the anatomy of it, the chemistry of it, the psychology of it, did it increase its sanctity or reduced it? It reduced it. But did we grow in knowledge? This is how it's amazing that in nations that were built and fortified to heaven, their God was a stone. It is an irreconcilable thing that men's mind can capture those levels of development, but their mind they will cut a tree from the forest and worship. It's a double contradiction. Do you get what I'm saying? See, that some of those systems, they did. That's what did the Jew now bring? Light of God. Some of the Jew will tell you, I've not built a city as fortified as yours. I don't bow to idols. I have a clear understanding of how not to be terrified at those awesome growths and developments in my time. What the Jew brings on the table. And there are too many Christians today who can't even bring that on the table. When you get to workplace, you just get terrified because somebody just bought a car. You just lose your ability to talk. They say, God, what have you done for me, Lord? Look at the Amalekite. See is right. You don't understand what God told you. We told them when they were accessing the promised land, you will dwell in houses you did not build. There is another dimension of even having what you don't build. That one is, do you get what I'm trying to say? Of drawing from wells that you did not dig. Is what people struggle for is God's gift to you. Then get it. These things the nations seek, but you seek first the kingdom, and all these things that they seek shall be It is Matthew 6:3 that technology came from. It was from the way God has walked with his people. That their passion and pursuit cannot be your passion and pursuit. And so when they want to terrify you, but this is what they have achieved, you tell them what you have achieved is God's gift to me. That's why we use all of them as tools, and we don't even have a sense of ownership for them. Are you still here? In Are you still Gentiles? Don't walk like the rest of Gentiles walk, in the vanity of their mind. You have been delivered from that walk. Praise the Lord. Where are we? Go back to that Romans. We are going to. So, for this reason, God gave them up to vile passion. Their women exchange the natural use for what is against nature. Likewise, also the men living the natural use of the woman. Can't you? Is it not amazing that as advanced as the world is today, one of the greatest debates in the world today is sexual proclivity. LGBT, it became LGBTQ. Q plus. So it's plus plus. They don't even know what to say. So today people just wake up so advanced and they just want to be women and they just want to be men. And should this be the climax of science? Do you know why it's climaxing in that way? Because what should be known of God, because they rejected the knowledge of God, God gave them over. It's not like what they have is wrong, but you cannot have it independent of God. It will become the blindness of your heart. That's the description of Gentile nation. So he said, likewise also the men living. The reason why I'm reading this place is to show you that it's not just Bible. It's something that continues in creation as long as men refuse to give God his place and think everything about life is advancement of civilization. Get to one height and turn back into the most obscene. I was studying this afternoon. How did Rome come to an end? The Roman civilization. It didn't crack by war. They were not defeated. It was an internal corrosion. Let me give you a simple example. Have you noticed America is so much built on capitalism? They've advanced with it, but it's becoming their problem. Did you notice that most technological inventions are not coming out of the West again? Every technological invention is going to the East. Do you know what they would rather do in America? They want to be lawyers. They want to be able to play that system and get money. Accountant. How you should not pay the type of tax. It's a system that is built. They said when the Romans, one of the things that weakened the Roman Empire was the cessation of wars. Their soldiers stopped wearing armor around. Like having pot belly. You know what I'm saying? So it was a system that cracked within. Because one of the things that can happen, even that's why when you have prosperity outside of God, we take your life. To weaken you. That's why in God's plan, there are some battles you must live around you. I'm not talking about demonic pressing you of you in the night. Lord, only come and press me. No, that's a demon theology. What I'm trying to say is that there are some conflicts around you today to keep you alert. Are you following me? That's why there are some things you will fight for. You will fight for it. Not because God cannot give it. How many of you know it doesn't cost God anything? Some of the things you have been praying for 6 months, you can do it in 1 second. But you will. He said he caused them. Did you read what he said in Deuteronomy 8? Don't go there. He said he caused them to go through the wilderness to hunger and to thirst. It was God's plan. He caused them to hunger. He says, so that they will know that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Glory to God. So, the men living the natural ways of men, bond in their lust for one another, men with women committing what is shameful, receiving in themselves penalty of their error, which was due. Continue. And as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind to do those things which are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual. I've watched some Roman film. The type, some of the things that the world is doing today that they think is new came at their eye. Some of their kings were pure homosexuals. They stopped liking women. They have boys. And one of the things that they like marrying their sisters. Preserve the bloodline. Diseases were breaking out of their family. It was a They were filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. There were whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents. All this just because they didn't retain God. Undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful, who knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are deserving of death, not only do the same, but also approve those who practice them. Praise God. So, like I said, there are 5 things, at least 5 things, that enter, that invade every system that does not retain God in his mind: idolatry, superstition, lasciviousness, demonism, false knowledge, and philosophies. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 5 to 9. Isaiah 2, verse 5 to 9. O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light of the Lord. Are you getting something from this teaching? Are you getting something from this? So when you read the word Gentile, I want you to have an understanding of the state of mind and state of nature of who a Gentile. Because the funny thing is that why did he have to admonish the church not to walk like the rest of the Gentiles? Because if we are not careful, we can. You know why did we study the Jews? We don't want to come back to a point in our life where our light becomes our veil. Why did we study the Samaritans? We don't want to come to a point in our life where we have incomplete knowledge and portray it as full. Studying the Gentiles. We don't want to come to a point in our life where we are walking. Don't you see that we are coming to a point in church that there are even things that are not happening in the world that are beginning to happen in church? The type of some TVs. When I'm on TV, I see pastors' wives. They are now program series. Pastors of this. The basic gossips of this world. Ministry has become celebrity. Sometimes when you see some pastors, you cannot differentiate between them and Caitlyn Jenner or those Kardashian. Because there's a Kardashian waiting in you to explode. Only using the name of Jesus. It is so we still, if we are not careful, we see ourselves called out of the Gentile world, yet walking like them. Hearing. What's the height? Who defines the height of fulfillment for you? Where did you get your definition from? Everybody are going to be brother, they are praying. Just be praying for me. That I will to do what? Pray for you. Some of you say, you cannot be too sure. God can use anything. No. God does not need your 18 time to reach the world. God should come and watch when you are sleeping and somebody is talking. I will say Christians today, they will not say, they say, hey, I want this one to win. Kilo Shenyi. There is a big brother in your heart that God needs to pull. Are you following me? Don't walk like the rest. We have gotten to a point that even sometimes you can't differentiate between church. Forget all this people are doing. When they leave this place, we are driven almost by the same impulses. Even people who don't do those things or who do ministry, it's the same thing. Hey, now, when a man of God goes to preach, I'm not saying it's wrong. People will show when he arrives. And they will park 7 cars. Will park. They say, yes, sir, yes, sir. That's not how God. He does. He said, and before you want to call it, say it's because we are honoring grace. Then we return back to this of humility. See, years ago, I noticed I was a very ardent follower of Pastor. Very ardent one. I noticed that when I go for his meetings those days, I know when Pastor Adare wants to leave. You know what he would do? He said, let me pray for you now. That is one dangerous prayer point, that you'll be a wicked person not to close your eyes and pray. By the time you hear the next voice, it's not him. You just hear you guys say, yes, pray, pray. I say, Then he said a story. You know what? He said he doesn't used to do that before. One day he went to preach in Ijebu many years ago, and he discovered that everywhere he was stepping, he just noticed that people were packing the sand and pouring it on their head. That was why he developed that. Today, you will even preach it. That's how far we have moved. Today, you say, where my feet touch, we are going to carry the sand. Carry the sand. Prophesy, man of God. Prophesy, man of God. See all of you. Becoming like Gentiles. Prophesying a lot all around. Superstitious beliefs. Hey, yes, sir. I had to call one of my guys recently. Post one prophet on this. He said, yes, I'm following. I said, I pinged him. I said, so if this is one of the people you are following, I've now mentioned 3 other names. He said, there must be people you are following. So he became defensive. He said, no. He said, no, I don't follow those people. I don't even like those people. He said, even though that they are sons of my fathers, but that my fathers honor them does not. By the time he was giving his defense, he was a cacophony. He said, I didn't say anything now. I just said, they are all I had. You know when you want to show some people that they don't know what they are doing, just ask a question. If you really know what you are doing, you ask the right question. It will unravel right before you. Debauchery. Look at it. Look at this word. You have forsaken your people, the house of Jacob, because they are filled with eastern ways. Eastern ways are the ways of nations, not in the covenant. Are you following me? They are soothsayers like the Philistines. They are pleased with the children of foreigners. Their land is full of silver and gold. There is no end to their treasures. Their land is full of horses, and there's no end to their chariot. Is there anything wrong with this? Their land is also full of silver, gold, chariot, horses, advancement. Then he added something. You know, when a virus wants to enter your system, it comes in like a favorable app. You accept it. But what really wants to deal with you? The eastern ways is full of silver and gold. Did you get what I'm saying? So if you are somebody too enthused that anything that is full of, that's why if you check their worship system, it was marvelously decked. If you see their idols, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world is the great temple of Artemis of Ephesus. They built it that the world used to come and see. That's why when Paul was preaching Ephesus, you remember, and those people are shouting, "Great is the honor of Ephesus." When the clerk of the city called those people, said, "Why are you rioting? Who is the man that does not know that Ephesus is the temple city of the great Diana, the star which fell from heaven. Don't read that place. That it was not a debate. But those people knew that something was already happening by preaching of the word. Who are not buying their idols again. The land is full of idols. They worship their own hand. How do we move from gold, silver? These are things that it takes a lot of human ingenuity to have, to end in the worship of idols of our own hands. See, it's an irreconcilable. That's what is called the blindness of the heart Gentile. It makes him advance and debases him. That's why we are fighting cultures we want to change. We advance, we build. But there are cultures that debase our children, our wives that we embrace. Because we are trying to find a way ahead without the knowledge of God. Are you getting my thoughts? Amen. Okay, so after God has witnessed in Jerusalem, in Judea, in Samaria, in Acts of Apostles. Then from Acts chapter 13, we saw God moving to the ends of the earth. Acts 13, as prophets and teachers were ministering in the church in Antioch, the Lord says, separate me, Paul and Barnabas, for the work which I've called them to do. And what was the work that called them to do? It was the work of reaching the Gentile nation. Praise the Lord. And I want to show you some of those things. For example, when Paul got to a city called Lystra, in Acts 14, verse 8 to 18, he raised a man that was lame. And what did that city do? The Bible said they brought a bull and wanted to sacrifice it because idolatry is. That's why after Acts 8, Samaria, you discover that the next renditions of scripture are places where there was a foreign god, a false philosophy, because that was a description of moving into Gentile nations. Are you getting my thought? So they brought these things and garlands to the gate, intending to sacrifice with the multitude. They told the people, gods have come down to us in the likeness of men. That was in the city of Lystra. There was a priest of Zeus. They did all those things. And Paul had to come to them and tear his garment and say, we are men like you. In fact, this is what we are telling you to turn away from. Why are you doing these things? We are men like of the same nature as you, and preach to you that you turn from these useless things. It's amazing what the enemy makes of people, even after they've advanced in this world without the knowledge of God. They worship what? Have you ever sat down after you came to Christ to look at the things you used to treasure? Where you used to go and do you get what I'm saying? Pastor Adboye is a PhD holder. They told him he cannot go to his hometown. So he said, one day, the Baba told him to go and buy a ram. And he has to carry it by himself on the road. Youngest PhD holder, carry a ram to a total. And you get to the house of the man. The man said, tie there. Baba has gotten the meat. Sunti. You get what I'm saying? Without the knowledge of God, who will come to you and tell you cannot go out of your house? You will sit down. I said, when your children wants to go to the frontier, you will slap them. When they ask you, please, what is it? He said, I don't know. But they said. Paul told the people of Lystra, he said, God wants you to turn from this useless thing. He said, and to serve the living God who made the heaven, the sea, and all things that are in them. Next verse. In bygone generations, he allowed all nations to walk in their own ways. This is the Gentile. They just, the blindness of their mind creates their direction. That's why they have multiple idols. And some families in Ibadan now, when they want to be brought to remembrance, they will remember that day that one of their great-grandfather has one masquerade that Ibadan has not. They are only looking for. They will now say, hey, if we don't bring out that masquerade, rain will not come. Say, and because they are dealing with people who are living in perpetual fear, who are living in superstition, this Agbobi 15. So that the town can have thinking like Gentile. When you come to God, know Jesus, you will know an idol is not. Let me tell you, even this simple magic, some of these things are just simple manipulations. Just simple manipulation. It's a way of control. Even in African culture, there's a way they use those things to control. It was a balance of power between the Alaf and the Oyomesi. It was balance of power so that somebody will not become this spot. So when they will open the calabash for the Alaf to say, okay, since you people want to open calabash for me, for you go to a laundry, you must never come here. You understand? Everybody was just playing game. It is the Naira swap. If you were in those days, we would have built. Is it not that Olokun is fighting us? So they say we should go and carry Guinea and sacrifice to Olokun. That's why we don't have currency. No, because we want to deal with some people. That's why we don't have currency. You get what I'm saying? And God will deal with whosoever He wants to deal with. Whosoever. That's Lystra. If you go to Athens was tied to philosophies. Acts 17. The men of Athens do nothing but to say something and hear something new. The Bible says when they had Paul speaking, they said, this one looks like speaking about one strange God. Boy. Attached to something. And one of these Paul told them, he said, men of Athens, I discovered that you are full of superstition. He said, because when I was passing and observing the objects of your worship, Acts 17, he said, I saw an altar to the unknown God. Now, they have the altar, even though they don't know the God. When somebody says, do something, you don't know where God will answer you. Down. They want to turn you to, if they invite you to mosque, they've taken you to Athens, where you have raised an altar devoted and unknown God. That God whom you worship ignorantly is the one I want to declare to you. Not because I don't want you to worship Him. I want you to worship Him with what? With understanding. Because if there's no understanding, superstition will overtake it. If you will do yourself a lot of good to go and take these 3 teachings. Listen, this is me trying to be a normal teacher after a long time. You just end up in superstition, in lasciviousness. You see it in another of those cities is Corinth. Corinth is lasciviousness. I have heard of a type of fornication I've never had before in the midst of you. that a man took his father's wife. It will lead. You know that when we become dark in our mind towards God, there are certain things that even nature should have taught us that will become hard for us to understand. For example, he said, because they did not retain the knowledge of God, men began to lust after men. Which means if God's knowledge had been there, nature itself has set those boundaries. Many of you know how John the Baptist ran into his death. You know what John told? John told Herod, it's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. Even Ebenezer Obey said, Má gbàyàwó ọ̀rẹ́, ohun tí ò dá ò dá. Now, do you need to be told, Má gbàyàwó brother? And that is where the Gentilic mind is leading the world back to. Because the world today, it is whatsoever pleases people that is right. Have you noticed? Even people will give you a cancer, you makes you feel good. Do it to get in. Acting spectacles. It's a debased mind. Side chick is normal now. Where? There were some things that we used to put a lot of sand. The fearful thing is, even people who are not Gentiles anymore because of the circumcision not made with them, still walk like the way you are all. People lost their mind 2 days ago. Like, you notice I did not say one thing this year by year. All of mean there are some years it does not exist. This year, my own year, Saint Francis of Assisi. We give to the poor like never before. Will you follow me? We, can you imagine? January 1 was just getting out of the New Year and Christmas spending. People who are always building money on events, they started publicizing Valentine January. I saw it. What will you give your wife this February 1st? Everybody will do as if they don't. I'm not even saying you should not celebrate love, but see, does he have to wait for one day? Just want to feel like. No, I know that as I'm talking now, some people are angry, but it's okay. It's all right. I take your wife out. Láwọn tó dáa. Ask me after the service. Next month. And some people even be lying on social media so that people will think that they are engaged. Is that terrible? Some people present a present to themselves. And I say, no. You know, one of the ones that get me most angry recently is that one that they proposed to you. You have been dating a guy for 5 years. Then one day, he stood in front of the train and he said, "Oh, you married. What have you been doing before? May I not have daughters that don't have brain, that will waste 5 years following a man that doesn't have plan?" Then they will even say you have not nailed down because they want to put it on Facebook. I did not say you should not kneel down. When we dated when we stood up to marry. How are you? You are low, Rebecca. But we used to go or fly by 10 p.m. We paid our price. But it was not rolling on the ground. And then, will you? Will you? Yes. What have you been saying before? That's by the way, so that people will not think I came for you. Some people after 5 years, they say, to me, the whole world must, then they will go to church again. They will wear white guy. What is it? Let me tell you what you are doing. What my father, when I was young, I discovered that there were, when I got up as I was growing, I discovered that there were always cartons of Coke and beer in my father used to throw parties. That generation, they used to throw parties. Parties is their way of getting their friends to come over. See, you don't have the money. Do you know what you have? What can create attention? So it's because you are bored. Some of our fathers were really bored because after 10 years they discovered they didn't have friends. When battles came, nobody was there. How many of you can, if you are holding them, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Naming ceremony that time, they will even bring a band. You are just bored. You are looking for attention. I hope you have not joined them. Our generation now is social media. We keep bombarding people. They must know this is my boyfriend. See what my boyfriend bought for me today. Why must I know? Okay, please stop. Sorry for staying. I just don't want you to walk like Gentiles. Walk in the vanity of their mind. Look at Matthew 14, verse 1 to 12. I was talking about what is the sin of John the Baptist. Matthew 14. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch had the report about Jesus. Now, the word Tetrarch means that there were 4 rulers. If you want to know those 4 rulers, you must have read Luke 3, 1 to 3. He identified them. One of them was Herod. Another one was Philip. He was his brother. They were all children of Herod the Great, who had divided his kingdom into 4 parts and given it to his sons. Are you following me? So, he said to his servant, this one of his sons, he said, this is John the Baptist. He's risen from the dead. Therefore, these powers are at work in him. For Herod had laid hold on John and bound him and put him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife. Why? Because John has said to him, it's not lawful for you to have her. This is the message that killed John. We're going now. No share now. And the one that pained me, it's not Herod. Herodias. Because I was thinking she was a victim. Have you noticed in the world today, the people you think are victims, they are. Do you get what I'm talking about? I thought Herodias was the victim. Maybe Herod used power. But one day, Herodias' daughter was dancing. Oh, I don't know what Herod too was looking for. Somebody that already had a danceable daughter. Hebrew trees, cuteness follows the mind that is dark. People just be looking for strange meat. Fete crocodile. Have you seen people like that? Yeah? I want the pepper soup of the toes of a crocodile. Toes. The toes. The all manner of strange meat. Head of chimpanzee. Sometimes just lost. Some of our this as that, if they put crocodile head in front of you in a bar, you lose control. Say, hey, where do I start now? You started eating hair gato. Just it's protein. People eat things they don't even know how to eat. Who told us those are the things that make us feel like they have treated us well? What is fighting her husband? You have not taken me to eat crocodile. Now, I'm not against crocodile soup, oh, please. Just wake up. There's one eatery they just opened in body that they used to serve octopuses that are alive. See the world today. Some of the most expensive food, and they will still be dripping with fresh blood like this. Say they are eating tuna. Inigo. What is it? Some of you say, oh, if I go to Japan. Even you, when you get there, you don't know how to eat it, but you have to eat it to feel along. You know what I'm talking about? Do you take tuna? Yes, I don't mind. Please tell them you can take tilapia. Don't come back here with running stomach. Remember the craze of seafood, including people that have never seen it all their life. Chinese. They will go and waste the money. Oh. It is just a feeling. Not saying you should not eat Chinese. So. Sometimes go and eat amala. Just say amen like thunder. Why am I spending too much time here? Oh, that's not a dance. You know, Herod said, oh, I'll give you to half of my kingdom. Herod, that's herself that was the one that said, I need the head of John the Baptist. But she was the victim. It struck me that so all that Herod died for is a simple psalm. You should not take your brothers. Does nature not have power to have taught that? Isaiah 44 verse 8 to 20. Let me. Isaiah 44 from verse 8. Verse 8. Do not fear, do not be afraid. Have I not told you from that time and declared it? You are my witnesses. Is there a God beside me? Indeed, there is no other rock. I know not one. Those who make an image, all of them are useless. And their precious things shall not profit. They are their own witnesses. They neither see nor know, that they may be ashamed. Who will form a god or mold an image that profits him nothing? Surely all his companions will be ashamed. And the workmen, they are mere men. Let them all be gathered together. Let them stand up. Yet they shall fear, they shall be ashamed together. The blacksmith with tongues walk one with coals, fashions it with armor, walks with the strength of his arm. Even so, he is hungry and his strength fails. He drinks no water and is fading. Describing how the blacksmith walk. The craftsman stretched out his rule, marks out one with chalk. He fashions it with a plane. He marks it out with a compass. He makes it like the figure of a man, according to the beauty of a man, that he may remain in the house. He cut down cedars for himself. He takes the cypress and the oak. He secures it for himself among the trees of the forest. Plants a pine, and the rain nourishes it. Then it shall be for a man to burn. That is, he will take part of it and burn. And he will take some of it and warm himself. Yes, he kindles and bakes bread. Indeed, he makes a god and worships and makes it a carved image and falls down to it. He cuts one tree. Part of the tree he uses to make firewood. Then part of the same tree, what does he do? He forms an idol. He burns half of it in fire. With half he eats meat. He roasts a roast and is satisfied. He even warms himself and says, aha, I am warm. I have seen the fire. The rest he makes into a god. His carved image, he falls down before it and worships it. Prays to it and says, deliver me, for you are my God. They do not know or understand, for he has shut their eyes that they cannot see, and their hearts, blindness of heart, that they cannot understand. No one considers in his heart, nor is there knowledge or understanding to say, I have burned half of it in fire. I've baked bread on his coals. I've roasted meat and eaten it. Shall I make the rest of it? I mean, your heart by itself should be sufficient to tell you this is no God. That's what he said. He said, shall I fall down before a block of wood? Verse 20 now said, what happened to him? Verse 20. He feeds on ashes. A deceived heart has turned him aside, and he cannot deliver his soul. This is who a Gentile is. A Jew is somebody who can teach others but can't teach himself. You remember in Romans chapter 2, I don't have time. He said, you Jew that know the law. He said, you that said that people should not steal, do you steal? So he said, when they sit in the seat of Moses, whatever they tell you to do, do. But what? Do not do what they are doing. So the Jew can teach because the law in the hand of the Jew is divine. The vessel is carnal, sold under sin. Are you following me? But the Gentile is a man that cannot even teach himself. He said, he cannot deliver his soul, nor say, is there not a lie in my right hand? I'm the one that went into the forest and cut this tree. Part of it I use. This is the debasement that lacking the knowledge of God brings a man to. It takes you away from having the ability to even speak to yourself. Your rationality is hampered. So when that happens, you are easily given to lasciviousness and lust. You are given to superstitions. Are you following me? You are given to idolatry. You are given to philosophies because your mind is blind. Many of you know the power of the light of God in you. How much it has given you power to be able to speak to yourself. How many of you have found yourself trying to do something, you call yourself to order? This is not me. This is not me. You have internal self-government by the knowledge of God. This is what a Gentile lack, and the foundation of his lack is blindness of heart. The Bible says, by that blindness is alienated from the life of God. Does not know God. There's no vacuum. When you are alienated from the life of God, the enemy fills it up. Pray the Lord will give you understanding. Thank you, Lord. Idols are the Bible called them the work of errors. That's Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 1 to 16. Psalm says, those who make them are like them. They have mouth, but they don't speak. They seize your ability to have government. You become very vulnerable. That was the state of the Gentile. Not led, no light of God's Spirit in him. Some of these men that are looking at high and mighty, if you meet them in some places, the type of shed they will go and enter in the night. The Bible says, anytime you want to sleep, when you are going out, put this thing in your pocket. Some people's God, their pocket. If it's not there, a problem. You get what I'm saying? Some people's God told them that anytime you see a light, fair-skinned woman, run. Ogwe o bomo pupa lo. How you talk? And because you don't have knowledge, you don't even understand that man is not outward appearance. You see people say, I like this girl, but she's too light. They said, always the compound word. We don't know who. We are no longer Gentiles. Are you following me? We are not alienated from the life of God. We are fellow citizens. Are you following me? Of the what? Of the house of God, the household of God. There are not people debating philosophies, false knowledge, superstition. I don't think I'm stuck somewhere in the midst of this, but maybe another day I'll finish this. But I hope you get my point. I want you to become like a Naaman who, after he was ill, he said, "Now I know," to Elijah, that there is no God in any other place except in Israel. That's how you cease to be a Gentile. He was delivered from the drive of his nation when he recognized God. Don't walk like the Gentiles walk in the what? Vanity. Life is not designed by how much of self-indulgence you have enjoyed. My uncles told me many years ago, he said when he went to the US, he just wanted to know what it means to date a white woman. Strange flesh. You just say, that's the beginning of the battles your children will have when you are gone. Because when you are gone, they will just see 5 people come. And they have, and women, the children from outside, they always look very. When you see them, oh, Baba Nina. They just wanted to know how it feels. There's no way it feels. Let me tell you up front. All I've sinned. I'm come short of glory of God. Ijebu girl, Ekiti girl, Akure girl, Akoko, Igbo, Shekiri, Amwa Calabar, Efik, all not lie. There's something that keeps telling you something is somewhere. It's not anywhere. It's the blindness of our mind that makes us think that what differentiates human beings is their culture. All these cultures, do you know what God calls them? Gentile. They might be reflecting that lack of God's knowledge in different ways, but it is the same premise about it. Don't walk like the rest of the Gentile walk in the vanity of them. So much. So I've shown you a sequence how God reached the world. First Jews, and Gentiles. And in the plan of God, you will see that He has always had the plan to reach these nations for Himself and make them His own people. Another thing I didn't want to go into for tonight that characterizes demon worship. Demon worship. Deuteronomy 32 said, when Jeshurun grew fat, it kicked. It worshipped new arrival and sacrificed to demons. So Apostle Paul will say things like, there is nothing in an idol. An idol is nothing in this world. But they will tell you, I don't want you to have fellowship with demons. Are you following me? It's amazing that the prophets of Baal ate on Jezebel's table, and Elijah ate on the table of the widow of Zarephath. God separated their feasts. It's a sign of there is no communion. The reason, if you continue to have communion with the world, you will soon start worshiping the demons they worship. Demon worship is part of the reflection of Gentile life. And that's why I'm always careful with church people. When nothing matters. You know, to church people, nothing matters. Immediately there's a type of dressing. There's a type of Malian, Christian Malian. There's a type of hairdo, Christian hairdo. You have never defined civilization for nobody. You have always been a follower. They are the one that define beauty for you. Immediately they define, everybody's now. That's the new one. Let me see your nose now. Everybody's now. As I'm going everywhere, I see thought every nose in the world. Everybody has become Indian. Don't worry. I'm not saying it's wrong. I went home last night. I said, Mama, what's wrong with it? What is to this piercing? And some of you, when you want to be, when you be crying your grandmother's name, what are you doing it for? After two, pierce. And every time they define a culture, we follow. Soon, we will come to the worship of God. Because they are the ones describing for us what life and beauty and fulfillment is. I'm telling you. Christians today don't want to stand out. They don't. They feel it's too alien to stand out. They want to always blend in and find a way to do the same thing they are doing in church version, in a way in which we will never feel like we are worshiping the devil. You know what I'm talking about? I was in university. I will round up with this. First time in my life when I saw fellowship dinner. If I knew, I would not have fought. Then RCF decided to have fellowship dinner. Some of us, I know one of my friends who borrowed money to buy a dinner gown. By the time we stepped out, there was a normal borrowing everybody. I was just leading praise worship. In that night, it's the only dinner I know that lasted till 4 a.m. Hey, talk about a fish party. How can a dinner last till 4 a.m.? Good need. Yeah. And I understood because somebody will go and we are students. Borrow money to buy dinner gown. And you just eat and go by 10. Because we are not preparing for gown, like dinner. We wanted to do party. There's nothing wrong with parties. But I hope you will not be worshiping demons. Did you get my message? Church, don't walk like the rest of the Gentiles walk, in the vanity of their mind. That brings ignorance and the blindness of their heart. Don't chase money like they chase. You have been delivered. You have been called out of the world. You understand me tonight? Hallelujah. When God began to remove those veils from those nations, He began to call them by His own name. are my people. I giving them Holy Spirit. Giving them the Holy Spirit. What he gave to the Jews, he gave to the Gentiles. I made them heirs of the same promise. Father, thank you tonight for your word. We ask for one thing tonight, that you will help us not to be carried away by the spirit of the times. The spirit that the Bible says walks in the children of disobedience. We ask for grace for a new walk. A walk that reflects that we have met you and we have seen you. In the name of Jesus Christ. Thank you, Father. A light that will bring us a more submitted life to Jesus. With our desires, with our bodies, with our vessels, with everything that is in us, just to serve you. Help us, Father. In Jesus' name. So as I said, careful. If you get home, read 1 Corinthians 3, 1-4. Paul said, I couldn't speak to you as spiritual men, but as carnal men. If you are not careful, you will be spiritual, but you will reflect more of carnality. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, he said, there is a type of fornication I see among you that I have not even heard among unbelievers. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, he said, you are taking yourself before unbelievers for judgment. He said, don't you know that you will judge the world? By the time he ended, he said, flee fornication. He said, you are God's temple. Tell your neighbor, you are God's temple. This body is not just for self-aggrandizement. The language of the enemy in the end time is self-fulfillment. What do they call it? Self-actualization. Self. If he pleases you, it's right. That's not the language of the kingdom. That's the language that destroys empires. And it's still working on the heart today. It will work in your life and mine. In Jesus' name. Are you blessed? Do you like this teaching? Want it to continue next week? All right, let's stand on our feet and give our offering.